Welcome to another fun day to learn new English lessons. Again, I'm your English teacher, Mrs. Celia M. Bonilla. I will be your learning buddy for this week. Just like in our previous video lessons, if you have limited data or internet connectivity, you may just read the written explanation that this video will contain. I will be posting that in our Facebook group chat. But if you can find ways to watch this video, that will be better. Okay, let's watch. Who will be watching? For this week, our most essential learning competency, or MELC, is to discover the conflicts presented in literary selections and the need to resolve those conflicts in non-violent ways. Let us set our goals for this week. So we have three goals. First one is to identify the conflict in a reading selection. Second, determine the different types of conflict. Third, suggest nonviolent ways to resolve the conflict presented in the reading text. Do you love to watch TV series or movies? Of those that you have watched, do you know who is the leading man or the leading lady? How about the villains? Have you ever felt disliking a character because of their actions? It is okay and that is normal. In every story, there is a conflict between a protagonist and an antagonist. What is a protagonist and an antagonist? So protagonist is the central character of the story. So I have here some of the examples of the protagonist in a movie. So if you can recognize them, that is very good. So we have here Harry Potter, Superman, John Wick, Rurouni Kenshin. We have Moana, and we have in the Money Heist, we have the director. And then the antagonist. The antagonist is the opposing character that we usually hate because they cause problem in the story or in the lives of our main character or in our protagonist. So here are the antagonists of our protagonist that I have shown earlier. Okay, now that we have figured out what is an antagonist and antagonist, let us try if you can identify who is the protagonist and the antagonist in the given picture. So first one we have here, that is very good, Ricardo Dalisay and Renato Hipolito of Ang Provinciano. That is one of our longest running TV show in our country. So who do you think is the protagonist and the antagonist? If your answer is our protagonist is Ricardo Dalisay and our antagonist is Renato Hipolito, then you got it right. Very good. Next one, let's try it. We have here Thanos and Iron Man. So who is the protagonist and who is the antagonist? Of course, we have our protagonist, Iron Man, and our antagonist, Thanos. Very good. Lastly, we have here Red Queen and Alice from the movie or the cartoon Alice in Wonderland. So the protagonist is of course Alice and our antagonist is Red Queen. Great job! Now that we have identified who is the protagonist and the antagonist, we can now understand more about conflict. So, conflict is a struggle or a problem between opposing characters or opposing forces. Some stories can have multiple or many conflicts. It can either be external or internal. So let's first discuss external conflict. So when we say external conflict, that refers to the opposition between an individual and other characters or forces. So there are four kinds of external conflict. So we have character versus character, character versus society, character versus nature, and character versus technology. Let us first discuss character versus character or another character. So it is the opposition between the main character and the other character or characters in the story. For example, we have here from the Slum Dunk, Rukawa and Sakuragi. So Sakuragi and Rukawa are competing for the same position on the basketball team. So we have here two opposing characters. That is why it is called as character versus character. So Sakuragi versus Rukawa. Second one is character versus society. So this type of conflict happens between the character when the character has a problem with the society that they live or including the beliefs or the laws of that group. So for example, do you remember this girl? So that is Katniss Everdeen from the movie Hunger Games. So she tries to put a stop to the corrupt capital's rule over their Panem. So that's why it is called as character versus society because she is against the law of their society. Third one is character versus nature. This is when the main character's problem is a natural force, like a predatory animal, typhoon, or a contagious disease. For example, we have the movie Train to Busan, where a contagious disease that makes a person zombie-like spreads. Another example is the movie San Andreas, where Dwayne Johnson, or also known as The Rock, is the protagonist. In the movie, an earthquake occurs, and of course, as thought to us, what may possibly happen next if an earthquake as strong as 7.1 magnitude occurs? It may trigger what? That's right, a tsunami. In fact, most tsunamis are caused by large earthquakes on the seafloor when slabs of rock move past each other suddenly, causing the laying water to move. These resulting waves move away from the source of the earthquake event and produces a tsunami. So, just for our additional information, this is how a tsunami occurs. So this is taught to us by science that when an earthquake happens at the bottom of the sea or in the bed of the sea, so an earthquake rocks the ocean floor. It displaces the volume of water pushing it up and then sets off an oscillation which develops underwater at great speed. And then seawater is knocked back from the shore. So you will be thinking that there will be a low tide and then there comes the big waves as water gets shallower. So that is how a tsunami occurs. Okay, going back to our lesson, we have the last for our character, for our external conflict, which is character versus technology. It is an external conflict that involves the struggle between the character and some kind or form of technology. So can you remember this character? That is Frankenstein. Yes, Victor Frankenstein never meant any harm with his experiment. So the doctors sewing together of body parts from a graveyard gave birth to a monster. So that's why from the experiment there came the revolution of the so-called zombies or not zombies rather, it's a monster. So another type of conflict aside from the external is of course internal. When we say internal, meaning to say that the conflict is within the inner conflict within the main character. So the main character has a problem of his own. It can be sometimes he has difficulty with the decision, or sometimes there is a movie of a split personality. Have you ever watched the Split, wherein the character has 51 personalities in just one person? One person with 51 personalities. Or I think there is a movie or there is a drama that will be airing in GMA 7, which is about a person with bipolar or two personalities. So internal conflict happens when the main character has a problem of his own. So this conflict can also be where a character tries to find out who is she or he or she is, and comes to a realization of a new character. Just like for example, we have Spider-Man from the series of Spider-Man. We have Spider-Man 3. In the third series, there is a scene wherein Spider-Man accidentally happens to know that his best friend is the true killer of his uncle. That's why he has a hard time making a decision on what to do. And then suddenly, he just woke up and he has his black suit, and then his personality comes out from Nick. So from a good Spider-Man, there came a bad Spider-Man. Okay? That is character versus self. So let's just review what is conflict and the types of conflict. So conflict happens in the story. Every story or every movie has a conflict. Conflict has two types. We have external and internal. In the external, we have four categories. We have character versus character, character versus society, character versus nature, and character versus technology. While in the internal, we only have one, which is character versus self. Now, for us to practice what we have learned, we will be having our additional activity. You will be choosing a movie that you like, any movie that you like. Answer the following. Number one, what type of conflict is in the story? Again, it can be multiple conflicts, but you can just choose one. And then number two, give a situation or scene from the movie that shows that type of conflict. And then you will be explaining why. And then lastly, is to create another ending of the story. So if you will be the writer of the story, how would you end the movie and resolve the conflict without being violent? Okay? You will be submitting your outputs next week, next Friday, and that is June, or we will be in July. So July, until July 2. I will be giving you until July 2 to finish your outputs. So before we end, I would like to leave you something that is really essential for us, most especially in this pandemic time. Conflict, according to Wayne Dyer, conflict cannot survive without your participation. In his statement, he highlights that conflict cannot occur without individual involvement and cannot exist without engagement in the situation. So if we want to avoid conflict, we can. We just have to spread love. Okay? Let's avoid conflict and just spread love. For your questions and clarifications, you may send your messages in my account. Thank you and I hope that you learned something from our lesson for this week. And goodbye.